Sending international payments is no longer something only large companies do. Increasingly, everyone from startups to individuals are sending money to more destinations around the globe. That's led to a need for a system that offers ease of use, is safe and reliable, and ideally provides customer service. Not a chatbot, but support by real people who are actually there to help you. Sound too good to be true? Stay tuned. I'm Jane Singer, and welcome back to A Seat at the Table, where we sit down with industry leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs to find out best practices that will lead us to greater success. Today, we're welcoming a longtime friend and modern-day visionary to our podcast community. Stephen Patton seems to always be one step ahead, seeing opportunities and turning them into success stories. On this episode of A Seat at the Table, Stephen is going to tell us about Banpay, a new fintech service he has recently launched, and what the future of international payments could look like. So let's sit down with Stephen and get an overview of what might be next for global payments. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us here on A Seat at the Table. It is fantastic to have you here. I'm so excited about what you're doing with Banpay.
Thank you, Jane. For me, it's a hat trick with you, so I'm very excited, and I'm always very, very grateful for you and the audience to give me a space to share some ideas.
Well, absolutely. Perhaps you can start off by telling us a bit about what exactly is Banpay.
Sure. So Banpay is not necessarily, or it's actually not a new company. We've been building up the Banpay group for the past 15 years. Banpay as a product and as a brand has been in the making for the past 7 years, and it's been operational for the past 3.5 years. So we built Banpay from the enterprise perspective. As you know, I used to be on the other side of the table. I was a user of financial products, mainly for international commerce, and we were the first to see what the value on fast payments and correct commercial terms on FX transactions. So when you're trying to negotiate bottom lines and you're going into the cents, not necessarily the dollars, these small costs do have an impact on what your marginal cost increase can be on an operation. And the larger you grow, the more you scale. And theoretically, it's the more invisible it would become. But when you add everything up, it does impact the bottom line. And it ended up we ended up finding out that within the payment rails and all of the stops that the money has to go when it has to flow from A to B, along the lines, we lose a lot of efficiency and therefore increase a lot of costs. So coming from a manufacturing background, what I saw is a lot of iterations, and I translated that to the manufacturing of a garment. Now, there were too many processes in the middle, and there was an origin and a destination. It just didn't make sense. So we started to put things together. We've been building Banpay in Mexico for the past 15 years, and that was our first market. Then we started to set up our international offices. So we went into Hong Kong, we went to Canada, and to the US, the UK, and now the EU, to get these strong trading parities up and running so that we can support customers from origin to destination to settle international transactions in a fair, fast, and simple manner.
That's so interesting. And it really ties in with today's demand for things being more international, faster, perhaps more traceable. How exactly does Banpay work? I mean, I know it's digitized, but if you could share with us at least a little bit of an overview of the functionality that's going on behind the scenes.
Sure. So if you know me in any conversation you've had, I'm a very big advocate about humanizing before digitizing. So we are trying to build the most humanized digital banking platform in the markets. Hopefully we will achieve that, or we are achieving that with our service performance. So what we sought out to do is if we understand how the money markets work, we just need to position our customers' interest to be able to settle locally. So there's a lot of misinformation or lack of information available on how the flow of international money markets actually work. So once you kind of go through that nuances, it's really a simplified process. But to my previous point, because we come from that international commerce background, we kind of simplify a process that from far away could seem somewhat complex. So for me, it was just about simplifying another product or another production line. So we had an origin destination we needed to figure out. So we started to see where the growth markets was. Obviously, coming from Mexico, we understand Mexico's 85% dependent on commerce with the US. And the majority of our income comes from services as well. So it's export of primary markets, it's export to the US, and service and tourism. So with that, there's a lot of currency transactions. So learning from our home country, we saw, well, if this is relevant to Mexico, well, what are the other growth markets doing? I was fortunate to be in China for 7.5 years. So I learned from the adoption of WeChat and Alipay as it was coming on live. So it was end of 2014 to 2022. So we lived all of the adoption of the digital platforms in China. And that helped us kind of steer a little bit in that direction. We didn't do a 180, but it was just like, look, if this is starting to happen here, I'm very, very sure that it will start to trickle down to the up and coming markets. After that, I went to India. I found the UPI infrastructure in India, and you can go into Mexico with Pay and Coli. You can go into Brazil with Pix. You can go into Spain with Bizum. So there's a lot of regionalized solutions that are really good for the local markets, but there was lacking this international connection. So what we started to do is we created this unified banking identification code that we translated that into the Banpay.me program, in which the difference is once you become a customer of Banpay, you're the same customer anywhere in the world. That anyone that will ever pick up the phone or get on a service call has your file, has you on board. You don't have this siloed divisions of, no, that's not my account. That's a Canadian account, or that's a US account, or that's a Chinese or Hong Kong account. Here, wherever you are, it's always the same service. It's the same platform. Once you're there, you have access to 38 currency in local currency wallets. So all you have to do is to fund initially in whatever currency is your local currency or whatever currency you have. And then you can use the infrastructure to pay locally. So that allows you to, one, hedge your position, to the best of your interest, or if you have some interest of covering some of your needs, or if you have that traceability, that middle or long-term visibility of what your commitment in payments can be. And there's an opportunity, like, for example, the USD is at a good price at the moment if you're buying it. So you can hedge your position, you can become liquid in USD and then just kind of flow out for the rest of the year in that currency, instead of having to factor in that transaction by transaction. So we give that control and flexibility back to the companies, whereas where the money belongs, it doesn't belong in the pipelines. It belongs in the hands of the people that work.
So interesting. Now, you said that you humanize before you digitize, and I really love that. I think that's so important nowadays. What is the difference between the user experience, so to speak, on Banpay compared with other financial digital platforms?
Sure. So there's a lot of hypes, and I think even in one of the FashCon conference, I one of my conclusions was beware of the buzzword.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Right now everything is AI and everything's agentic, and
right.
Obviously we're all trending in that direction, and you have to be somewhat tech savvy, or you need to be able to connect that into the strategy, but it can't be the strategy, because then it's just commodity.
Right.
If everyone machines run at the same, then where's that differentiation factor? And that's what we tried to do. So one of the reasons the group became successful was precisely because of the level of service that we're able to provide. So there's always someone on call. Now that we have our 6 offices in 5 countries, someone can always pick up the phone. And even the best digital platforms, it doesn't matter how robust their solutions and their agents can be. There's there's something about having that final interaction and having that certainty from a person to person connection of saying, yes, this is all. And if it's important when you're getting your Amazon order, you can believe how relevant and how important it is when you're holding people's money. Like that is
Absolutely.
something that the tolerance level and the frustration and friction is really, really high. So you need to be very precise and you need to be very professional. People need to know that their resources are safe. So ultimately, they can trust the performance of a platform, but they want to know who's behind that platform. And we've emphasized a lot that in our promise to our customers. And that's one of the reasons why our customers stay with us for a substantial amount.
Yeah, that's such a huge win. And yes, that's very important to people. It's definitely a cost for a service provider, which is why a lot of service providers want to do away with that, want to replace that kind of customer service with bots and things like that. But you're absolutely right. Whether it's an Amazon order, which is probably not as critical, or your money, which is critical to most people, you want to be able to
Sure.
ultimately talk to a person when you need to talk to a person, which might not be all the time, but when you need to talk to someone, you actually want to be able to get a human being on the phone. So I think that's an incredible point of differentiation that you're bringing to the market with Banpay, and something that I think most other service providers will not be willing to invest in replicating. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of the initial challenges we have when we're setting up the offices, and I found that when we were doing the Asian expansion in the past, getting people to drink that Kool-Aid and showing them that what we do matters, and it's not about, it's not a customer service call. It's if if the roles were inverted, what would you expect? I would want to know about this and this and this and this. So being able to translate to our service as a customer, I think that's what started to build out a lot of the, not the investments, but a lot of the focus that the companies put on it's fantastic. And we've developed our own technology. Pretty much like 95% of everything we have has been designed in-house. We have our digital concierge, which is called Penny, which is going live on the 15th. And Penny is the voice of Banpay, where it's the voice and the heart of Banpay. So anything and everything that we have ever built in any conversation, in any training, seminar, sessions, email conversation, that was fed into that and say, this is the most contextualized voice of the company, and it is primed to be able to solve 99% of it. But there's always a button that if you believe that you still want to talk to someone, talk to a human now. And we'll connect you to one of the service offices. And it's important for people to know that they can always fall back on that if needed. In some cases, it's just my transaction is processing, and they forget that it's an international transaction that typically would have taken 3 to 6 days to settle. But they see it in process and they get used to a good level of service. So one of the funny things is once we get it right, or once we get it done right the first time, that's the expectation going forward every single or 100% of the time. So we have to be very, very on point. And if there is any lag time because there's a public holiday, regional holidays, if there's observation on transactions, anything that can happen, we can always cause a lag time or a delay, but we need to be on point and be able to reassure people that whatever they are doing, like we are in control and we know exactly what's happening. It's just a matter of time and it'll be settled as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That's really so important. Now, I think, leading on from there, I guess a big question that perhaps a lot of people listening to this would have is, what's the security around this? I mean, everybody likes the idea of the convenience of doing things online, the speed, right? The fact that you could do things from anywhere. And yet there's, growing concern about how safe is this? Because we know you hear these big stories of things being hacked, of all kinds. It's probably not that frequent, but it gets so much play that it does make people a bit nervous. How are you handling that on your side? What are the levels of security that you've put in place? We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
Sure. So that's one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing. We've invested for the past 8, 9, 10 years consistently in safety and security. One of the reasons why we decided to build out a lot of the infrastructure ourselves was precisely because of that. If you go into the SaaS or the BaaS, now if you go into software as a service or banking as a service, you're really reliant on what everyone else considers to be safe or regulated. So the interpretation is not something that we were becoming comfortable with. It's just not something that we can control. It's not something that we can dictate what happens. So we started to build out our own tech, our own infrastructure. We have an enormous amount of layers. Obviously, we have put in a lot of tech behind it. Nowadays, obviously, it is supported by AI, but AI doesn't drive the decision. What it helps is in profiling what's happening, and it gives us a lot of feedback in a very concise and precise manner so we can make better decisions of what's happening in the platform. Last year, we had, and I think we're on the low end, but I think we had something like 60 million hacking attempts.
Wow.
On average. And it's just something that happened because fraud is a business. No, that it's the business of fraud. So for everyone that's trying to keep everyone out, there's 10 guys that are trying to get in. So we need to be very, very, very strict and very, very strong in our security. Besides that, all of our accounts are regulated and they are protected to a certain amount. And then we do have liability insurance and we do have cybersecurity, fraud, additional insurances. So our funds are covered maybe 10 to 1. It's difficult to get to that point in which you would have to actually go down that path, very fortunately. But I think if you're going down the regulated path and you're building out your own tech and your own infrastructure, you do have that investment in place. And to your point, it's a high expense to run a safe environment, but it's something that you can never just take out the equation. Like it will never be more profitable to reduce your cybersecurity and budget for the company because that's our front line.
Now, when you're working with Banpay, do you maintain an account there like you would at a bank? And then if you need to transfer money or receive money, it would be in and out of that account? Or does this function more as an intermediary service where you would say, I want to transfer money? So you would log on, you would take it from your other bank, right? Whatever bank you're using for your company, and then use Banpay as an intermediary to send it to the other party's bank. I don't know if I'm explaining that very clearly. Probably not.
Yeah. No, I get your point. We've seen both situations. And the second situation that you're mentioning normally comes from very new users in which they are unfamiliar with the power of the platform. So what we build out is we connect all of our users. We give them a local account. So you warehouse close to 30, I think at the moment we're at 38 local currency accounts, but they are named accounts. So they are named accounts in tier 1 banks all over the world. So the strength of paying locally is that you don't have to use the expensive routes, or you don't have to do payments that would take maybe 2, 3, 4 days. If you're paying locally, then the settlement time is quite quicker. So for example, from Mexico to China, we can be there same day.
Wow.
Our competitors' rails would take, in the best cases, it's maybe T+1. And if you did that transaction after 2 p.m., that goes into next day. So that's actually 2 days. So we're about, on average, between 1 to 3 days more agile in some of the international commerce. And we do have in our 6 or 7 main currency trading parities, we have same day settlement. So if you want to go from US to Euro or Mexico to Euro, you can do same day settlement. In many cases, we can do China same day. Hong Kong, we do same day. Singapore, we have same day. Japan, we have same day. So we have this capability of paying same day, but you do warehouse and you hold balances in individual bank accounts all over the world. So once you open an account, it's as if you would have gone to 38 different banks to get your Euro account, your GBP account, your Swiss franc account, your Indian rupees for payments, your Hong Kong dollar, your renminbi, your Canadian dollar. Now we just launched Brazil this week, so we're kicking off this week with a bank. So Brazil goes live today, which is fantastic. Australia went live a couple of weeks ago. So
Wow,
we're still trying
congratulations.
to. Thank you. We're trying to give people that ability of saying, well, this is not. It's not a US specific or a Canadian specific or a Mexico specific or a Euro specific. Is our missions to be able to onboard and unify as many people as they find our platform useful. And we've started to layer some additional enterprise solutions on top of it. So now the banking rails is a support system. What is becoming really useful is all of the business tools that we built inside based on the needs for faster payments.
Wow, that's just such a fantastic service. And I think that people want something like this, but they want the trust factor. I think that what holds a lot of people back is they like everything about it. And then they're thinking, well, I'm not sure on these digital systems because, like you were saying, there isn't typically a person you can call. So everything's good until something goes bad. And from what you're explaining here, I think you have solved that critical point that typically doesn't come up when people are discussing tech innovation, but that means a lot to the user. So I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, we're trying to kind of find our space. Obviously, banking, financial services is highly competitive, is highly technological. The margins are really small. You need to be very efficient on how you do all of your operations and where you decide to place focus, because there's just so many things along the lines that you can impact, because you can go into payment gateways and go into like the retail commerce and just service that well. That's a massive business, because the small commerce is an underserved market. The big players have institutional grade banking and they have that's great. So, but getting to that point is really complicated. So how do you bring down that benefit to people that are starting up? So we built some particular products specifically for people that are starting out. So we do have the startup account, we do have NGOs, we have nonprofits. We're here to support our missions to support people and get their resources back in or get their control, get their hands back on what they need for them to be in control of the resources. Because right now, whoever is liquid in a very volatile market, what you need to have is access to liquidity. So based on that is how can we get from A to B as quickly and as efficiently as possible? And one of the funny things is when we are going through the onboarding process, our process is actually quite simple. You could probably do it online without the need of anyone assisting you. But even with that process, and it plays to that kind of double standard, because like your onboarding process is strict. Yes, but I'm strict because I need to be careful, because once you're a customer, you want that level of security. So I'm not, there's steps along the way, not because we're difficult, it's because we're being thorough. And once you're in, you don't have to worry about it. But if we ask some questions, it's not because it's a process or a sheet. It's just because we need to be very precise. Obviously, operating in high-risk jurisdictions, for example, like Mexico. Mexico's been having a really tough time on the news, on regulations. It's been targeted recently. There's a lot of things that are happening, from questioning of origin of resources, but not all money is back. Like there are really good companies that are trying to do things well, and the country's built out on people that go out and work every day. So you have to be able to separate the good from the bad. And that's much more challenging than what it takes me to say it here with you. So we try to take the learning of operating in a very high jurisdiction and what would we need in order to give that same sense of security? If we can operate with a regulator in a high risk jurisdiction, then an easier jurisdiction should be easier to comply. But what rules do we need to put into place that are beyond the regulator, that are just at the comfort level of what the Banpay compliance or the Banpay security would mean for the customer?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Stephen. I've learned a tremendous amount. I'm very excited about Banpay, and congratulations again on your expansion into so many new markets. I think that's just an incredible win in such a short time, really, when you think about everything you've achieved. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes so that people can find out more about Banpay. And I would encourage people who are listening to this to check it out. I mean, there's so many opportunities, particularly if you are running a business and you need to do international transactions. This could be the solution that you've been looking for.
We are happy to jump on a call. We have offices in Hong Kong. We have offices in Victoria, in Vancouver, in Houston, in London, in Madrid now. So anyone that wants to stop by, if we need to jump on a call, we're happy to take this on board. And in many cases, it's a use case based. No, I'm trying to figure this out, or I'm trying to fix this. I have a solution for that. So the banking rail is one part of the solution, but on an enterprise side, we built this to support companies that are starting out, that have multiple jurisdictions, that have the need for agile or fair currency payments. We're here to help. We're trying to make our mark, and I appreciate the window and the opportunity. We're happy to see all of the guys that are listening to us come on board. Would be happy to have it and share this journey with all of them.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. And again, thank you for being with us here today. Thanks for being with us here today on A Seat at the Table. If you'd like to see some of the other episodes, head on over to our podcast website at seat.fm. That's SEAT.fm. There's also a link here in the show notes. And if you're thinking that you'd like to be a guest on the show, you'll find information on how to apply there as well. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Jane Singer, and I will see you in the next episode.